Money Arata. When was Bitcoin created? Well, some people would say that the official date is October 31, 2008. On that day, programmer Satoshi Nakamoto emailed the Bitcoin white paper to a mailing list. It was an article that he wrote explaining what Bitcoin would be and how it would work. But this was just a conceptual article. That is why some people say that Bitcoin actually emerged on January 4, 2009, when the first block of Bitcoin was generated on the network. Others would say that the correct date is January 4, 2008, when the bitcoin.org domain was registered. But it can be argued as well that the idea of Bitcoin originated in 1984. That was the year in which economist Friedrich Hayek said, "Money has not improved. Money has rather become worse in the course of time." Government said it must not develop any further, and what we have had since in development are matters of government innovations, mostly wrong, mostly abuses of money, and I have come to the position of asking, has monetary policy ever done any good? I don't think it has. I think it has done only harm. That's why I'm now pleading for what I call the denationalisation of money. I don't believe that we shall ever have good money again before we take the thing out of the hands of the government. Because we can't take them violently out of the hands of government. All we can do is by some sly or roundabout way to introduce something they can't stop. He is describing Bitcoin. We can say that the idea of Bitcoin has always existed and it is as old as mathematics. We can say that Bitcoin was not invented, but discovered. It was implemented with the first block, but it is a very old idea which had to wait until we had the technology evolving to the point where this idea could be implemented. And what idea is this? The idea that money cannot have a central authority that controls it. The concentration of power leads to abuse, intervention, and theft. That's what happens today, where governments control a country's money. And worse, this is what happens in the world when much of the world economy depends on the US dollar and an international financial system that is controlled by the United States. Please note that this is not financial advice. Read the full disclaimer before proceeding. The idea behind Bitcoin is to free people from money manipulated by the few. A new world monetary order is emerging. Gradually, the world is realizing that there is a great risk in being dependent on money controlled by governments. This perception started within each country, but today it spreads to the international community. For some time now, people and companies have known that it's not a very good idea to depend on an international financial system controlled by the United States, but never before seen sanctions that the United States and its allies applied to Russia made it all too clear. The other countries saw that and they all started to think, well, wait a second. What if one day the United States does not agree with some position of my government? What if they decide to impose sanctions, like that one, against my economy? What if they exclude me from the SWIFT system as well, the international payment system, and leave me out of this international financial system? Of course, the dollar will not lose its position as an international reference currency overnight. In fact, those who have followed the dollar index, the DXY, have seen that the dollar is gaining strength in a short term due to many factors, including the raise of interest rates. But thinking about the long term, several countries are already starting to think about alternatives. Faced with the possible fall of the dollar as the protagonist in the world monetary order in the future, experts are beginning to ask themselves, what could replace the dollar as an international reference money? A classic answer is gold, because it is a commodity with strong and scarce money characteristics. But Hayek had another, more original idea: money based on other commodities. Now, the problem with commodity-based money is that it is not hard money until the arrival of Bitcoin. Now, before we continue, let's make one thing very clear. Hayek was an economist who contributed to knowledge with innovative ideas that deserve to be studied. It is not by chance that he won the Nobel Prize, influenced a whole generation of economists, and is discussed to this day. You may or may not agree with his ideas, but you cannot deny that he is a relevant economist. And if you want to dig deeper, you can read The Denationalisation of Money. I will leave the link here. And one of Hayek's most interesting ideas was that of commodity-based money. The word commodity corresponds to international basic products that do not undergo an industrialization process. They're simply raw materials, such as platinum, soy, oil, gold, or any other product that can be exchanged for one another regardless of where they are produced. Now, because of this, commodities have international prices. As they are traded between countries, prices are formed by the supply and the demand of all countries together. In this way, commodities could, in theory, be used as money. Let's take a hypothetical example to make this idea of commodity money more clear. Imagine that your country wanted to have a reserve equivalent to $1 million in value. Okay, your country can then have this amount deposited in dollar or US Treasury bonds. But in that case, it would be at the mercy of the United States, as we have seen recently. If the United States were to adopt inflationary monetary policies, this would imply an export of inflation and it would devalue your country's store of value. Nominally, your country would still have $1 million in the account, but now that $1 million has less purchasing power than it had before the United States government diluted that currency, causing dollar inflation and thus devaluing what your country had. So for protection, instead of your country storing that equivalent of $1 million in cash or in US Treasury bonds, your country would store your commodities, like platinum, soybeans, or oil, or any other commodity in an amount equivalent to $1 million. In that case, the United States' influence wouldn't be direct on your store of value. On the contrary, if the commodities appreciate in the international market, your store of value would even increase in value. Looking at it this way, it seems like a good idea, but commodity-based money, commodity-backed money runs the risk of the easy money trap that we have already explained in the episode number 2 of the Money Arata series. Until the arrival of Bitcoin, commodity money could not escape this easy money trap. The easy money trap can be understood as follows. If a good serves as money and something is valued in a market, very soon many other people will also be interested in producing that very same good. Therefore, only very few difficult goods to produce can be served as money, such as gold or Bitcoin. Otherwise, if a good is too easy to produce, what will happen? It will end up devaluing the money itself that is based on it. As soon as that good is chosen as money, the appreciation will make many other people want to also start offering that same good. According to the law of supply and demand, excess supply of the good in a market will drive prices down. After all, if there are a lot of people selling, the competition cannot charge too high a price. And this drop in price of the good will devalue the money that is based on that good. This devalued money is useless. It is not sound money. This is the trap that kills many easy solutions to money, including the idea of commodity money. Goods without a proper relationship between stock and flow can never serve as collateral for money. For a good to serve as backing for money, it is essential that there is a high relationship between stock and flow. This is known as the stock-to-flow model. We already talked about it in the episode number 9 of the Money Arata series. Let's recall what this relationship between stock and flow is. Stock is the inventory, is the amount of the existing reserves of a product in the world. Flow is the annual production of that same product. When a product is very difficult to produce, the flow is low. So because of this, those who have the product in stock don't sell it at any price, they prefer to stock it up. So low flow can lead to high stock. The best example of this is gold. There is a stock of 185,000 tons of gold and a flow of only 3,000 new tons of gold produced each year. So if you divide the inventory by the flow, you have a high stock-to-flow of 62. On the other hand, all the commodities that are easy to produce have a low stock-to-flow ratio. For example, platinum, it has a stock-to-flow of just 0.4. There is a world stock of 86 tons of platinum and a flow of 229 tons of platinum produced every year. That is, the platinum flow is greater than the stock itself. As soon as platinum is produced, it is already being offered in the market. So nobody's hoarding platinum because platinum is not a commodity that will appreciate over time. It is the opposite of what happens with gold. Now let's do an imagination exercise. Let's imagine money backed by gold as it existed for a long time up until the 1970s, and money like Hayek imagined money backed by commodities. Money backed by gold would have a relatively stable value, as the amount of gold stored is much greater than the annual flow of gold production. The probability of a sudden shortage is pretty small. Even if there is a fluctuation in demand or production of gold, the market participants with large inventories, they are able to sell the gold that they have in a quantity that they want. If the backing has some stability, the backed money will have stability as well. Now, on the other hand, commodity-backed money with low stock-to-flow would be very unstable. As soon as the market detected which commodities are backing the money, they would appreciate. With a higher price, more people would also want to produce the same commodities and stop producing other things. And as a result, more supply in the market, the price of the commodities backing that money would quickly start to drop, devaluing the money. In addition, commodities have use in people's practical lives. Oil is used for energy, platinum for electronic equipment. When some goods are chosen to back money, the market will have an incentive to stock these goods as a store of value rather than actually using these commodities in real life. Then this can cause a lot of problems. The market would be unbalanced, and the money backed by commodities would be very unstable. So this whole idea of money backed by a basket of commodities does not actually survive the real test in the real economy. The denationalization of money was what moved the idea of money backed by commodities, and today there is an alternative to the goal dreamed of by Hayek. What is Hayek's idea behind commodity-backed money? The objective pursued is the denationalization of money. It is to take the power away from the state and put it back in our hands, in the hands of individuals. At first, the money didn't belong to the state. Money was created by individuals to solve private problems. That is why it was based on gold or silver or other difficult to obtain goods. And then over time, states, the government started to take control of the money. First, the rulers started to place their symbols to ensure that a particular gold coin or silver coin was really worth what it said. And then these metals were replaced by pieces of paper that represented value in gold that was stored in the hands of the government. And finally, gold backing was completely abandoned in the 1970s. Today, money is only worth what it is because of supposed trust in governments. And if governments lose confidence, the money you've worked your whole life to earn could be worthless in a few weeks. If the government decides to print more and more money, inflating the money supply in the market, the purchasing power of your salary drops dramatically. The idea of denationalizing money is to allow the value of money to be freely determined by the laws of the market. Internationally traded commodities have their prices formed by international supply and demand. Therefore, in theory, money backed by a basket of commodities traded on the international market would be more or less free from the sphere of influence of a single government, and it will have its price dictated by the laws of the market. In Hayek's day, that was pretty much the only option. To understand, you need to recall that he lived from 1899 to 1992, and he wrote his major works between the 1920s, 1940s. Today, there is an alternative to this denationalization of money. A form of money that is not controlled by any country, that has no central authority, that was created by individuals to serve to help us to solve particular private problems. And that has a stock to flow relationship similar to that of gold, and it has its price being formed freely by the market. That form of money is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a solution to the denationalization of money that is far superior to the idea of money backed by commodities. The influence of Hayek and liberal economics on Bitcoin is enormous. The first proponent of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, never actually made it explicit that his work was based on the Austrian School of Economics, but the fact is that Bitcoin has the characteristics of denationalized money that was Hayek's dream. The biggest of the many innovations brought by Bitcoin is precisely the absence of a central authority, the absence of a controlling body, the absence of a ruler deciding how the currency will be issued and how people can use their money. Bitcoin replaced this central figure with its own horizontal network of users. Each node in the Bitcoin network has the possibility to verify all transactions that have already been carried out since Bitcoin has started operating. Some users who act as miners verify transactions and they guarantee the security of the network, being rewarded with new Bitcoins that are issued. In addition, Bitcoin's operating rules are programmed into the software. They are known to everyone. They're practically unchangeable. That is, it is not possible to make a sudden or a unilateral change. Thus, the very network of the people using Bitcoin replaced the need for a central authority. As these people are spread evenly across the planet, Bitcoin is essentially denationalized money, just as Hayek imagined. The difference is that Bitcoin was programmed to be scarce. Technically, Bitcoin is a commodity that is scarcer even than gold. It is an absolute, verifiable limitation. It is because there is a limit of less than 21 million units of Bitcoin that will ever be issued. No matter what, the software was programmed to never go beyond that. Now, with gold, the only limit is the technology that we have to be mining gold. It could be that in the future, we could have new machines that can detect and go deeper on the Earth or to find more gold, or maybe go to outer space with ships and get gold from asteroids. This programmed scarcity ensures that Bitcoin has a high stock-to-flow ratio, and in addition to the maximum Bitcoin issuance limit, the mining difficulty of new units is automatically adjusted by the software according to the number of units that are left to be mined, and also according to the number of machines that are mining Bitcoins. Every 4 years, Bitcoin software is programmed to perform a process known as halving, which means halving the issuance of new Bitcoins. In 2008, when the Bitcoin network went live, it was easier to mine Bitcoins and the reward was greater. 4 years later, in 2012, the first halving took place, the reward was cut by half. And this was repeated in 2016 and 2020 and again 2024. Each time a halving is executed, a flow of Bitcoin production decreases and the scarcity increases, ensuring that the currency will not be diluted, devalued if the demand remains the same. With the blockchain history and the halving happening every 4 years, you can know exactly how many coins, how many Bitcoins have already been mined, and how many are in circulation. And you can also have a good mathematical prediction of how many Bitcoins will be mined until the last of these 21 million units being produced, which is something that should happen around the year 2140. All this programming was thought out on purpose, precisely to avoid the problem that money backed by commodities would suffer. In a commodity money, everyone would rush to produce more of those commodities. That would generate a process of appreciation that in that type of a commodity that will be backing the currency. This is undesirable. In Bitcoin, when many people are trying to mine at the same time, the total amount of Bitcoins is not changed. It's just more difficult. And every 4 years, the reward is halved. This means that commodity-based money has a certain logic behind it. The logic of denationalizing money, of leaving money free from a central point of influence and vulnerability. Now, the point is that in Hayek's time, there was no technically viable solution to carry out this denationalization of money. And today, this solution exists. It is called Bitcoin. This doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin will be chosen to be replacing completely or even partially the US dollar in a new world economic order. Gold we probably have the upper hand in this dispute from the eyes of many people, including for reasons of tradition and the fear of the new. But from a conceptual point of view, Bitcoin has all the characteristics to serve as a reference currency, and it is worth understanding how to use it in practice. Hayek was a visionary. Decades ago, he already had ideas for money that reduced the power of the state and gave power back to the people. Ideas that were way ahead of the technology of his time. In Hayek's time, there was no good solution for denationalized money, money that would be free from the will of a country, of any particular ruler. But today we have this solution. It is Bitcoin. And for those of you who want to better understand how Bitcoin works and how you can participate in this new world monetary order, I want to invite you to know the Diamond Hands course. There is a special training from Arata Academy showing you everything you need to know about Bitcoin in a simple and straight to the point way. And you can see more about the Diamond Hands course by visiting the link arata.se/Diamond Hands.